Hello, my name is Annette DeLu, and you are listening to The Heart of You. If you are interested in working with me in person, you now have the opportunity with Soul Discovery Workshop. We will spend 2 days discovering your spiritual gifts, unlocking your abilities to channel, to really tap into your intuition, to meet your guides and your angelic team, as well as diving in to the Akashic records. If you are interested and you are in the Huntington Beach, LA area, or even if you're not and you feel like taking a short trip, please head to my website at infinitesoullove.com and you can head to the store. Right there, you will find the Soul Discovery Workshop, which is September 16th and 17th, 2023. Welcome back. Today's episode, we are talking to Kate Evans. She is a decluttering coach who uses her 20 years of experience as a psychologist to help women overcome their mental and emotional barriers to decluttering and create a life and home that they love. She also empowers her clients to live a holistic life and stresses that caring for your home is, in fact, self-care. I mean, it really is, right? So I would like to welcome you to the show, Kate. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting.
So to the audience, I want to give them a little context of our relationship because we've known each other pretty much this side of forever. Right.
I would say for the second half of our lives, so the entire second half of our lives and then some.
Exactly. So Kate and I went to University of Michigan together. We were in the same art school together. Although we were not really close friends, we knew friends of friends, but we didn't really know each other. And then we both moved to Chicago at the same time and we became friends and we have been friends ever since. And so Kate has seen me at so many different stages of my life in my experience, my goth phase, my, my motorcycle phase, all my phases, right? And here we are, we've both sort of ended up in some similar spaces, which I think is really beautiful that both you and I have had our own journeys and we've sort of diverged in a couple of ways and then we've come back together in a couple of ways and now here we are. And you are doing such beautiful work with helping people not only, declutter their homes, but also declutter what's going on in your heart space, in their minds and that sort of thing. So how did you get to this space? So tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey, your emotional journey, like how you came to this point.
So I like to take it backwards quite a few years to when you're working with yourself holistically. Of course, you're working on all these different areas of yourself, the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. And I had been working very hard on my physical body, and that was a big focus. And while doing that, I was doing work on my mental and emotional body through therapy and my own coaching and those sorts of things. And in 2018, I got trained as a yoga instructor. And through that process, what a lot of people don't know is that process is a very intense spiritual, emotional, journey. And so much, it was like probably the most intense 6 months and really hard 6 months of my life, but it changed so much about me. And it was in 2018, actually just before or right around the same time that I started the yoga teacher training was the first time that I decluttered anything in my house. So it really does come together. It's very connected. So, I had worked on the physical, I worked on the mental and the emotional, and that kind of led into the spiritual with yoga. And, I had been practicing yoga for about 10 years at that point, I think. But then all of that culminated in the decluttering experience. And so I've just, since 2018, have just built on all of that and working with myself energetically, bringing in elements of feng shui into my life and my home, because feng shui is about so much more than just the home, which is what I'm about. So it's just been this build upon build upon build.
Mm. Yeah. And would you like to sort of tell our listeners a little bit about your background in therapy, like what you were doing prior to this?
Mm-hmm. So my focus as a therapist has always been in women's empowerment.
Mm.
Every single thing that I've done, even prior to becoming a therapist, because I was 28 when I went back to grad school to become a therapist,
Hmm.
had to take a lot of different roads to find that road, and that led me to a bunch of others. But everything I've ever done has always somehow managed to be about girls, women, and strengthening them, showing them what they have that they don't see that they have. Because I'm not creating anything for my clients. I'm just helping them translate
Right.
themselves and find what they already have. So that women's empowerment umbrella has been with me forever and has continued into my coaching work as well.
Right. Yeah. And I thought that was important to mention because you've been doing this work for quite a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
both Kate and I were at the art school together at University of Michigan. So Kate, you were a graphic designer. I started off as an industrial designer. We
Mm-hmm.
both were designers for like professional designers for quite a long time. I was in the space much longer than you
Yeah.
were because you kind of ditched the corporate space a little bit sooner than I did. And I think it was only what, like a couple of years after
It
you
was,
came to Chicago, right?
yeah, because it was a couple of years.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that kind of went into why I didn't go back, why I didn't seek another job in graphic design after I left the job where I was crying, every week.
I remember
But
that, yeah.
ultimately it was just, it's something I think people really need to know, especially younger people need to know these days, because you don't
Mhm.
necessarily know what you want to be when you grow up, like when you're 18. And
Not at
it
all.
is an evolution. You are an evolution. Everything is that. And I just, going back to just the time that I left graphic design, I just wanted to share with the listeners that you are the reason I met my husband. And
Oh, me. Oh, right. Yeah,
you
yeah,
were
yeah.
that, yes,
Yeah.
because you were the one who introduced me to the goth scene, and then I met him at a club, and we've been together for
Right.
our 25th anniversary is coming up. So
Oh
I just
my
needed
gosh.
to
Oh,
kind of
that's
tuck
so
that in there
incredible.
somewhere because I really appreciate it. So
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, he did the work, he's the one that asked you out, all that other
he
stuff, but I just
did,
happened
yeah.
to bring you to the club. Yeah, right? Oh, funny. Yeah. So when it comes down to the process of empowering women and helping them
Mhm,
uncover the things that are sort of hidden within them,
mhm.
what is your process typically? How do you go about really sort of helping them to uncover that for themselves?
Mm, that is an incredibly complicated question.
It
No,
is.
I create a safe space, and that might sound incredibly simplistic, but we don't have a lot of safe spaces, especially as women. We don't feel safe
Mm,
in this world. And
yeah.
so the first thing I do is I'm creating a safe space for every woman who works with me. And then it's about becoming curious about her because she may not have been curious about herself up to that point.
Yeah.
And continuing to just investigate and to ask the questions that she may never have even thought to ask herself,
Mm,
and to
mhm.
sit with her through her resistance to certain new concepts and ideas, because that is a huge part of anyone's journey, is the
Yeah.
things that you run up against it, you go, nope, not doing this doesn't work, that isn't me, I don't do that, that's ridiculous, why would I try that? And I sit
Mm.
with them through that, and again, keep that safe space for them, and it seems to work, so I must be doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the sort of opposite end of that, which is maybe not just the things that you're resistant to, but the things that
Mm,
you're just tolerating because you feel like you have to. So when you mentioned your job that you absolutely
mhm,
hated when you were in graphic design and that you were crying every week and all of that, like so many people out there are in jobs or in situations where they just feel like they have to take it because, oh, well, I have to have a job or I have to have a da 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 da, whatever it is.
mhm.
It's like, no, you don't. You don't have to have that because if it's making you miserable, it's going to have an effect on your emotional health, your physical health. It's going to have an effect on everything. So when it comes down to that self care and you're helping women through that, when it comes to the outside, so obviously the outside reflects what's going on inside. So how do you address that with somebody? I mean, obviously they're going to come to you first. So that's the first step, right? They're willing to step in and do the work.
Yeah.
How do you approach that with them?
Really, the first thing I do with my decluttering coaching clients is I ask them, okay, what's a space that you want to be working on? And then I ask them how they feel when they think about that space. And then we talk about what those feelings are about. So, for instance, a woman who she and her husband had downsized to a very, very, very small house 9 years ago. And they had put all of their excess stuff into an adjacent shed. And it had sat there for 9 years. And that was really what she wanted to focus on first. We ended up focusing on other areas of the house, but in this shed, she had been a dancer at another time, and her entire history was in this shed. Now he had his entire history in there too, but I work with the person that I'm working with, and if it bleeds into the other person, it bleeds into them. That's okay.
Right.
But we had to work through these feelings that she had about her previous career, her current career, where her life is at, what all of this meant to her, and what it would mean to her to let go of those items. So it's one snippet of one person's life, but that's basically the process is, what do you want to be working on? How does it feel? What are the feelings that you have then when you think about letting go of this stuff? And what does all of that mean to you about yourself?
Wow. Because most people haven't asked themselves that question. And that can be in relation to stuff. It can be in relation to a job, into a relationship, to everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how often do we sit down and say, all right, how do I actually truly feel about, I don't know, this thing or this object or whatever is in my space, or, go all the way up to, the really big important stuff, right?
Well, and thankfully, our culture is getting to be more encouraging of this sort of self-investigation. So for all the things that I'm concerned about with where our culture is going, that's one thing that I really appreciate. And it makes it so that more people, I think, feel more open to even seeking someone like myself out and doing this work. But you're absolutely correct. On the average day, a person doesn't say to them, what do I feel like the mess in my kitchen means about me? They just think, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? How could I have such a messy kitchen? Why can't I just change this? I'm X years old. I should be able to do this. I should be able to fix this. And none of it's not accurate.
Yeah.
You can have all the information in the world about how to clean a kitchen, how to tidy a kitchen. But if you haven't addressed that emotional attachment you have to whatever's happening in that space and what you're afraid it means about you, that it is cluttered, or what it will mean about you if you get rid of things, or the fears that you have, all of that, if you don't address that stuff, it's just staying a mess.
Right. And especially given the fact that if you're not addressing the core issue, like whatever the core issue is, because I can tell you right now that every spring when the sun comes out and it's warm, I'm like super happy to clean my whole house and declutter. And I'm going to be like going through those closets, and I'm going to be, I just actually started doing that recently.
Oh yeah.
Because the warm weather here in Paris has been slightly delayed. So, it's been a little colder than I've wanted to, but just recently it started getting warmer. So, I got out my summer clothes bin and I started going through it, and I was like, nope. I haven't worn this in 2 years. Nope. So I started going through all of it. So I'm perfectly happy to declutter and go through all my stuff. Like when I'm happy, when it's sunny, when I'm like in a good mood, I put on some really good music and I'm dancing around my house and I do the whole cleaning thing. But it's like, that's not something that happens all the time. That's not something that happens every day. And I can actually now, because I've done a lot of inner work myself, I can tell when I move through something because I instinctively start cleaning, and my house is cleaner most of the time. And, when I'm in that good energetic space, right? So it's like, now I can see, oh, well, if my house starts getting a little cluttered, or if I'm leaving stuff on the floor, like clothes on the floor, I'm like, oh, okay. Huh. Interesting. So what's that all about? So I'm saying this from the standpoint of actually having done a lot of this work
Mhm.
myself, and now looking at it through your lens, because I haven't necessarily like sort of tied those two things together in terms of the clutter representing sort of what your emotional state is like.
Yeah.
So and how do you explore that with somebody? How do you sort of determine whether or not it's really an emotional thing that's happening, or whether or not it's simply, oh, I don't know, like you just don't have a right shelving unit that you can put stuff in, or that you need to, you know what I'm saying?
Well, an easy way to figure that one out is to say, okay, go to Target and
Yeah.
get a shelving unit, and that's your homework for this week, is to get that and to put everything into that unit, blah blah blah. And then
Right.
they come back to their next session and they haven't done that. And then
Oh,
we
I
go
see.
through, okay,
Okay.
what happened? Well, I didn't have time. And, my kid had this game and my husband needed that. And all these things happen. And say, okay, I get that. I hear that. And was there truly never any time that you could go to the store and you could get this thing? And the answer is
Yeah.
always, well, no. I mean, there's always time for the things that we prioritize. So what I'm looking for is, do you follow through? And if you don't follow through, what is getting in the way?
Mm,
And if something's getting in the way, that it's going to be something emotional. It is.
right.
Now, yes, are there massive crises and emergencies that happen in people's lives that would stop them from just saying, yes, and I leave
Of
space for
course.
that, of course. And
Right.
on the average, generally speaking, when I give somebody a homework assignment, or they give themselves that, really in my work, I'm asking them what they're going to work on, and they come back and they haven't done it. Well, now we've got a discussion to be had. And
Right.
I want to come back to what you were talking about being able to look at your space and seeing, well, if things are starting to become a little messy or something like that, then that connects to your mental emotional state, and you can see that, like you said, you've been working on this stuff.
Yeah.
So what you have is awareness. So I'm working with that client who said she was going to get the shelving unit and didn't.
Mm,
I'm working out with her on her awareness of self, her awareness of, am I actually going to do this? Or am I just saying I'm
mm,
going to do this because I think that's what I'm supposed to say? Or I think I should just be able to do this? Or do I recognize within myself that there is a barrier here, and there's not a chance in heck that I am going to go and actually get that shelving unit? So
right.
as she increases her self awareness, she actually needs me less and less. I'm perpetually working myself out of a job.
Me too. I'm right there with you.
So as she increases her self awareness, she can stop and say, you know what, I know I'm not going to do that, but I think I would do this other thing. And maybe
Mm,
it's a smaller thing. Maybe it's something
hmm.
that doesn't have quite as much emotional stuff to it.
I get what you're saying, because it's funny that something actually popped into my head today right before our interview. And I know you'll remember this because it was ridiculous. When I think it was in my second apartment in Chicago,
Mhm.
and you would come over and I would literally have all my makeup like in a circle around me on the couch. So
Yes.
it would be on the couch, on the coffee table, in a perfect like semicircle around me, because that's where I would put on my makeup.
Uh-huh.
And like it was just something I did. Now keep in mind I'm in my 20s. Like I don't really, I don't really know much about it.
Not living with another person, you're not impacting somebody else's space. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, and like it wasn't until I don't remember if it was you or somebody else, but somebody had made a comment about it. I know you had made a comment like, why do you have this circle of makeup like surrounding you? And I'm like, well, it's the only place I can put on my makeup so the lighting is good over here, right? So like
Uh-huh.
it was at that moment that I realized that I could get like a vanity, or I could get like a little drawer or a little something that I could put all my makeup in, and it could all live there. And if I
Mhm.
had to go somewhere else in the apartment where the lighting is better to do my makeup, I could do that. Right. So that's a really good example of a sort of non emotional attachment to
Mhm.
what the clutter was and why it was there. It was simply just me not really having the the know-how or the tools to be able to organize and to be able to like make it so it has a living space.
Right.
And, my makeup could live here and I can do my makeup in this area and that's it. Right. So that's one example of sort of like a non-attached emotional state regarding stuff. Now, if you want to take another sort of avenue with this, which is going to be like way on the other extreme, which is with my father passing away a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago, it's been a long process with the estate. And so, long story short, my mom had to go through my dad's stuff in his house because I wasn't able to go. My sister wasn't able to go because the closing of the house was within 2 weeks. So because my sister lives in California, I live in France, like basically my mom had to go do that. So it was like this really visceral feeling of like, oh my God, like this is his whole life. And these are the things that were important to him. And am I really going to just donate them and like throw them out and all this stuff? You know what I mean? Like this was the process I had to go through of like, this is really hard. My mom showed me this picture of a caricature that he had. Like he had taken, I don't know, I think he had gone to some seminar or something and they were doing caricatures. So it was a caricature of him like at a podium giving a speech or something like that. It was really cute. But I'm like, what am I going to do with that? Like there's no use for that for me. I have photos of him. I have all kinds of stuff, And so I had identified in my head, like, okay, 1 or 2 things that I wanted. And I said, okay, mom, look for these 1 or 2 things. And that's all. Like, I don't need anything else. And the next couple of days, I was really struggling with the fact that, we really identify with our stuff and with the things that we love in our apartments and everything else. And then when it just boils down to like, oh, okay, so now we're just going to give all this stuff away. Right. So I had to really work through that emotional attachment of the stuff. And of course, my mom has her own issues with emotional attachments to stuff. So, she was trying to, oh, well, what about this? And what about this? And I'm like, no, mom, just let's stay with the 2 items. It was a book and it was a backgammon set that I was like, if you can find it, cool. If not, that's fine. Right. Okay. And when I went in and checked in with my dad energetically, spiritually, right, he basically said to me, he was like, you don't need any of this stuff. Like, you don't need any of this stuff to remind you of me. And I was like, yeah, I know. So when you have those 2 extremes, like, so you're investigating, you're doing this little investigation with your clients, you're seeing, okay, is it the benign non-attachment, just need some like tools to be able to figure out how to create space for the stuff that you do need, the stuff that you do use, the stuff that you like, all the way to the extreme end of, oh my God, this is something that somebody left behind of somebody who I love, right? How do you navigate in that space between those 2 extremes when you're investigating with your clients?
So with those things that truly only require information in order for that person to start to create their own solutions, we kind of just walk through that. And that is a part of the coaching that I do. Not everything is emotional. Some of it's very logical. It's the things that never occurred to them of like, hey, you can create a makeup station. They have these things called vanities that have like lights on them and stuff. You could do this. Like couches are, generally speaking, their purpose is for lounging, and the purpose for things. And so that person can go, oh man, why didn't I even think about that? And then goes and gets a vanity and no longer has, like eye makeup stains on the couch.
So basically when you're in that space with the client, it's usually pretty immediate. So they're not going to have any resistance to it. It's going to be like, oh, right, cool. That's a great solution. I'm going to go do that. They do it. They implement it.
Exactly. And then I will say that in my own decluttering journey, what I did was I spent hours watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts. I'm probably looking at a few things on Pinterest, but it was really, and maybe a little bit like on social media, but like YouTube and podcasts in particular, and books, reading tons of books. So it was like tons of information gathering. But I will say that I did that at that time because I had not been emotionally ready to do that work previously. So, but once I got all that information, like I had this one day, I'm sitting, I have a tendency on my days off to just kind of sit in bed, like reading a book or doing something. I looked at my dresser and there's just one drawer that had tank tops in it that I could never figure out how to organize. just couldn't. And I went, I'm doing something about this, and ripped everything out and decluttered half of it and file folded. This is a Marie Kondo, the way you fold things where they stand up in little packages, little rows. And I did that and went, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I had like half of the drawer was empty. This was great. Okay. So that's all logic. And that was, and I was ready for that solution at the time that it came to me. So, right, there was no resistance. You have to be ready for the information, because you can hear the information 1,000 times, but if you're not ready for it, you don't use it. Okay.
Right.
Now we go to the other extreme of somebody has lost a loved one. And now we're going through all of that attachment and the loss and the grief process. So we have stages of change that we go through. We have stages of grief that we go through when we're letting go of things, because we perceive items to mean things. We are human beings love symbolism. We are so attached to symbolism. And to be able to then, the client and I will walk through that of what do these things mean to you? How is this going to help you remember that person like you went through yourself in that process? And what are you afraid it's going to mean about you if you don't want these items?
Right. Right.
Or what if it's all your stuff and you're thinking about the fact that there's going to be a day when you're no longer here and somebody else is going to come in and they're going to have to do what your mom had to do in your dad's place and you and your sister had to do from a distance. And you look at everything and go, oh gosh, okay, so am I okay with somebody having to deal with all of this stuff? Am I really so attached to all these things that I have to have them?
Right.
And when I got to the point where I could stand in my house and walk through it, and I have a smaller house, so I can't have a ton. Well, I can have a ton of stuff. It's kind of like having a purse, like a small purse. You can only jam a certain amount in, and a large purse, you can jam a heck of a lot more in. When I got
it's amazing what you can jam in a closet, like it's amazing how much stuff
it's like a little Tetris thing that you create, but then you have no idea what's behind, layer 1, 2, or 3.
Oh yeah.
If you can, when I could walk through my house and say, and this may sound extreme, but if my house burned down today, taking out the things with heartbeats from the house, like my husband and my cats, if the house burnt down today, is there any item in this house that I cannot live without? And when I got to the answer of no, there is not, I knew I was free.
Yeah.
Now, do I continue to declutter? Yes. So there's still things I'm like, oh gosh, why have I held on to this? I have no idea why I didn't get rid of this ages ago. So it's still an ongoing process, but photographs, electronics, the things that people usually will say, oh gosh, I couldn't live without that. Any of those things, when I got to that place where I said, if I lost these things, I'm okay.
Right.
That was freedom. That was relief.
Yeah.
That was peace.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm going through that right now, so to speak, in terms of like now I'm in that phase after the clearing out of my dad's house. Yeah. Now that that's done, I'm going through that process with myself saying, okay, like, yeah, exactly what you were saying. Like if my friend had to come here tomorrow because I crossed over, because I died, like where would all this stuff go and why, and what is necessary for me at this moment. Right. Yeah. So like, I'm starting to look at certain things that I have, like, I love stuffed animals and I love toys and things like that, all my Disney things and everything else. And I'm like, okay, so, there are things that I am going to hold on to because I do love them. But, are there some things that I can, give to a friend who has a kid, right? That kid is going to appreciate that thing much more than I would, right? Or, so I'm starting to go through that process of identifying the things that I do want to hold on to for now, or the things that I, really feel like I probably should get rid of. Because one of the conversations I was having with my friend Tina after all of this happened, she was saying to me, she's like, well, we might have to talk to each other and like go through a list of things that are important to us. So I can tell you right now that vase over there, that vase means a lot to me. And I'm like, but if you didn't tell me,
right,
if I came in to clean out your house, I'd see that vase and I'd be like, okay, donate, whatever, so if you have no idea of what attachment the other person has, it doesn't mean anything. Right. So when you get to that space of, okay, so what does it really mean? Well, what it means is that what's important is you. What is important is the other
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
It's not the stuff that's in your house. It's not the things that you collect or that you put on display to show that you have a personality, right?
Right. The personality. Yes, those things are there to express your personality, to, for you to live with, not to shove into a closet in a box somewhere. Those are for you to actually live with, to enjoy. Each of your toys and things that you've always had displayed, those that bring you joy, I have always loved that you do display them because you can continue to enjoy them.
Right.
And that's super cool. Now, if you were to pass away and your girlfriend had to come in and kind of take a look at things, she knows, if you have a conversation, especially, she knows which ones are like super important, but she still would have to decide, okay, even if those are important to Annette, are they important to me?
Right.
And so there's like this layering of all these questions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that when you start asking, and granted, yes, this is going to an extreme. This is sort of in the more, okay, so this is like, okay, this is life and death stuff that we're talking about, right? But it doesn't have to get to that extreme in order to start thinking in this way. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I reached out to you and I was like, I need to have Kate on the podcast because this is exactly sort of what I'm going through right now. So what are some of the tips that you would give to the listeners to be able to go through this process on their own? So let's say they're not quite ready to book a session with you to be able to go through this process, but they just want to kind of dip their toe in the water. What would you suggest?
So the first thing I always suggest is go to a space that you've been saying, oh God, I want to tidy that up, or that just like someplace where your energy is drained in your house, and stand in front of it and identify one thing, just one. Okay. Pick it up, ask yourself how you feel about it, have a conversation. If it's too difficult, if processing that one item is going to block you from everything else, put it back. Just put it back. Don't deal with it right now. We're starting out. We're trying to find the easiest place to start possible. So you pick up something else and you look at it and you go, you know what? I don't use this. I don't even remember where I got this. And so you put that in your donate pile, your sell pile, you put it in the trash bin, wherever you decide it goes. Okay, now you've done one thing. Right. And maybe you sit and you think about how does it feel to have that one thing gone? And I'm going to tell you, it is very rare that somebody just stops at one thing because it feels so good to have that one thing gone. You're like, oh, I want to get rid of another thing. So then what I say is 27 things. So 27 is a very powerful number, and it is a very powerful feng shui number. It is a derivative of the number 3, which is very powerful. In yoga, you do 108 sun salutations on the solstice, the equinox. That is a derivative of 3. So there's lots of number stuff going on here. But anywho, so I tell them find 27 things in your house. Now, I once did the 27 things by going through my jewelry, and I had all these the Pure Vita thread bracelets. I came up with 27 of those that I never wore anymore. So, and I was like, okay, there's 27 things. It was enough to fit in one palm, but it was 27 things. So, okay, I achieved that. But then I say stop. Okay. Because, I want my client to, or if it isn't my client, it's somebody who says the same to us, whatever. Stop. Right. And check in with yourself as to where your energy level is. Because what we do not want to do is burn you out of enthusiasm. Oh, okay. Yeah. It is better to stop. And people are fearful of stopping when they've got motivation because they're afraid they're never going to start again. But the thing is that if you burn yourself out, you're not going to start again. If you stop when you're like, okay, if I'm honest with myself, my energy is starting to kind of ebb a bit. If you stop at that point and say, tomorrow I'm going to do another 27 things, or tomorrow I'm going to do one thing, whatever you're deciding to do, then you'll continue. But if you do like 3 hours today and you're exhausted, it could be months before you come back to it. Right. Yeah. And that's super important because the motivation aspect of it is something that we try to harness. I know I try to harness it just recently, I'm, just editing podcasts, right? I'm like, okay, I can do just
one more. I can do just one more edit, like, and my intuition is saying, no, just sit on the couch and watch another episode of Mrs. Maisel. Just relax, right? Like,
Right.
just do what you need to do to just relax, because you're going to miss things. It's going to, you're not going to be as enthusiastic or as happy to do what you're supposed to be doing. And the thing is that there isn't any amount of, how can I put it? Like, there's no pressure to get something done, like right now in this very second. Like, you don't have to get it done. Like, that is the sort of the pressurized version of corporate life that you and I both left a long time ago. Right. So why is it that we're going to put that pressure on ourselves? Right. So letting go of that pressure, letting go of that, that corporatized pressure that we sort of live in and grow up in, and say, okay, cool. So, and I love the fact that you said you had, 27 things just that could fit in your hand, and that was it. Perfect. That's amazing, because you think that maybe that's just not enough, right? Maybe you think that, oh, it's not stuff that's taking up a lot of space. And so maybe I have to do something bigger, or, do something more, but maybe that's enough to shift your energy.
Yeah. Was it a couple of years ago? I think it was about 2 years ago. I went down to my dad's in Florida, and we had agreed that I was going to help him declutter some stuff. And so we decluttered his office, and a lot of sweat was involved because he sat in a chair and I just brought things to him. There's something terribly wrong with this picture, but okay. So funny. We cleared out his office, and I styled it for him. I styled his shelves for him. I got some organizational systems in place that were sustainable for him. Awesome. We went to his bedroom. We kind of did the same thing with his closet, got rid of a whole bunch of stuff. Then I went and took him shopping to get new stuff, because the man was not buying new stuff. It was ridiculous. But what he had in his bedroom, he had an extra dresser, and he had a bookshelf that had just random stuff on it. He wasn't utilizing it as a bookshelf. And honestly, I'm just going to say energetically, if you can avoid having bookshelves in your bedroom, please do so, because that can interrupt the energy for sleep. Anywho, so we declutter all this stuff. And after I left, he then found people to buy that extra dresser and that bookshelf. So I think the bookshelf went first. The reason I was thinking about this was because there's the small impact things, and then there are the big impact things. So if you have an item of furniture that you're like, I hate that thing, and it is an eyesore, then come up with a solution to get that thing out of your house, because you would be amazed at how the energy shifts when you move that giant item. So my dad then, like, it was within days of him getting rid of that second dresser. So now, like, all the things are gone, that his weight loss plateau broke.
What?
Yeah. Like, it was never on our radar. That was not our intention, but he had been plateaued for almost 2 months in his weight loss. My father struggled with weight his entire life, and suddenly he started losing weight again. Like, he had not changed his exercise routine, his eating routine, and changed anything else except he got rid of those items.
Wow. So energetically, you're literally letting go of the weight.
Literally. And it's funny because so many of my clients, and my father said this as well, like, when we declutter everything, say, oh, I just feel so much lighter. And my dad said that before he got rid of those items, before this whole weight loss plateau thing broke. I feel lighter when you get rid of these things, because they're dragging you down. They're holding you down. So they're holding you down in all aspects of your life. And we don't think about that. We don't think that, all the stuff piled on that bookshelf, like that stuff is somehow holding me back from living my best life.
Right.
But it is, because it's representative of everything inside of yourself.
Yeah.
And if I could go off on a tangent about bookshelves for a sec.
Yeah.
I was raised in a family where highly intellectual books are the thing. Information, education, like this is what gives value to everything and to yourself. So I had books on books on books on books. And when I started my decluttering journey, like, I had bookshelves that were stacked with things, and had books stacked in front of books. Like, there was way more on every shelf. So I did wave after wave after wave on these bookshelves and got rid of one. And it was down to just this one bookshelf, but it was still just packed with things. And
Mm,
I had to keep on going through them and saying, okay, why do I have these books?
hmm.
Because they're representative of how I think I'm supposed to be, the person I think I'm supposed to be, that I feel like I was raised to believe that I'm supposed to be. Like, you hold on to Dostoevsky. Seriously.
Right. Right.
Come on. I had Tolstoy and Dostoevsky on my bookshelf.
Mm,
Never read them. Never read them.
mm,
Was
hmm.
never going to read them.
Hmm.
And when they left, pressure left with them.
Wow. Yeah. And you know what? It's so pertinent and applicable to clothes as well.
Mhm.
So not only did I do that with the bookshelf, and actually, like, so my bookshelf, it's not too bad right now. Like,
No,
it's
that's
okay.
good.
I got rid of a whole bunch of books recently, and it's nice here in France because when you have English speaking books, people have a tendency to want them because it's harder to get
Ah,
them here.
cool.
So that's one thing that's nice. But when I was going through my clothes, my summer clothes that I told you that I was getting rid of a
Mhm.
couple of days ago, I looked at this one dress and I was like, that dress looked so good on me. But it doesn't anymore because I've gotten older and my body has changed and
Sure.
it's not, it's, it doesn't look as good on me anymore. But like, I was still glorifying, like, that dress used to look really great on me. Okay,
Uh-huh.
well, but it doesn't anymore. So get rid of it. Like, it's okay that it's not the style that I would wear anymore. It's okay that it's not the right fit anymore because our bodies do change over the course of time. So there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, that dress looked amazing on me like 10 years ago. I don't need this dress anymore. Right.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
This loops us actually back around to the grief thing,
Yeah.
because a simple dress could symbolize something to you about who you once were, or about a younger version of
Yeah.
yourself. You and I are both approaching 50 in the next year.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's lots of thinking about your life that go on at this point. And so you could very easily look at a dress and it could symbolize a whole bunch of things. And so to let go of it could potentially trigger a grief process. The letting
Right.
go of that person that you were, holding on to all the lessons and all the joys and all the things that came from that life of the younger version of yourself, while then, like, letting go of the expectations that come with that,
Mm,
and just embracing who you are today and who you are then moving into the future. Because a simple dress could be holding you back from moving on into the future that you really want for yourself.
right. Oh God. And you just tapped into, I have a bin in my closet right now
Oh,
that is skinny clothes. Those
oh,
are the clothes that, you hang on to because, oh, well, okay, they used to fit me and, I've gained, let's say 15, 20 pounds and, oh,
mhm.
okay, so those will eventually fit me again. Even if they will. It's possible that they will, but do I really need to hold on to them? Like, can I buy new clothes again? Yeah, absolutely.
That thing right there of, could I get another one? So that is a question to ask yourself when you're decluttering. And
Mm,
this is hard sometimes, because in this culture where we're consumerist and there's so much stuff, it can be difficult to rationalize the getting rid of things if you could potentially use them again in the future. But you
right.
have to kind of look at it's like a cost benefit analysis thing here
Yeah.
of holding on to the bin of skinny clothes. Is that, again, I'm going to kind of harp on the energy thing, but is that blocking your energy from something else? And oddly
Mm,
enough, holding on to that stuff could potentially be blocking you from actually losing weight that you are wanting to lose, because you're
exactly.
attaching to a different version of yourself. Because even if you lose that weight, the way your body is going to be shaped at this age versus at that age, even if there's only a few years difference, could be different. Styles could be different, all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I just realized that just now. So when we get off this interview, I'm going to be going straight to that bin and I'm going to
Oh,
be like,
good.
gone, 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 gone. Yay. Yeah, it is funny because when I really tap into that person that I was, do I love that person that I was? I do. Do I love the person who I am now more? Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. the person that I am now is way more happy, way more aligned, way more chill, like, I mean, still working on the self-love thing every day, but I mean, so much more in tune with who I am and loving who I am now than I did last year, the year before, 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago. So if we want to talk about the little goth girl who was riding her motorcycle all over Chicago, I loved those clothes. I loved that music. I loved my life at the time.
Yeah.
But I was miserable most of the time. I was really sad most of the time. I was dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of pain about who I was and, childhood wounds and all of that fun stuff that we, start to uncover as we go on this journey. So you can kind of glorify those times. You can kind of glorify, oh, well, oh, I miss those shoes or that jacket or, or even the motorcycle, I had to get rid of that eventually. Right. So like, it's one of those things where you have to really identify, okay, yeah, those were really beautiful times, but you know what? I kind of like where we are now.
And that is so very much the goal that, that we want other people to be able to get to that place where you can actually say that you like yourself better today than you did at another time. And there have been times in, I think, both of our lives when we couldn't say that. And
absolutely.
So I think that's something to remind the listeners is that we have been working our tails off on this stuff through various means, and we've worked through things and we've let go of stuff and we've brought in other things, and we've been doing this for years. We've been very consciously, intentionally doing this for years, and so I think that has a lot to do with where we're at. And so that's what I want to encourage everyone to do for themselves, because you and I think, are really great examples of, you do the work, you get to a super cool place, and more super cool things start coming into your life, and you gather more and more joy around you. And you have to go through the tough stuff. Pain is not required, but there's going to be a lot of discomfort. And to let go of things and to sit with that discomfort and to open yourself up to all the other things that are going to come in.
Yeah.
That's what I want for everybody.
Yeah. Because what comes in after you get rid of the old is always better. It's always better. Like,
it is.
You're not going to make room for, I don't know, some big monster to come through the door, right? And I'm using that just as an energetic analogy, right? You're opening your space to get rid of the monsters in the closet and the stuff in the closet. And it creates this bright, beautiful energy within not only yourself, but within your space. And it can actually just change things immensely for you. I mean, I remember during the pandemic, I don't know if I told you this, but I moved my furniture like 4 times during the pandemic because like the energy was so stuck. It was such stuck energy that I'm like, I have to, okay. So like I moved my living room around like a million times, and I painted, I got new furniture, I got rid of furniture. I like did all kinds of things. And it's like, and I had just moved here. So like there wasn't, you know what I mean? Like there wasn't a whole lot that I could do, but I did it because I needed to move that energy and to get rid of that stuck energy. So when you do get rid of the stuck energy, and you know what that feels like when you get the stuck energy again, like we did during the pandemic and stuff, you feel it. You feel it. So like the more you do this type of stuff, the more you are accustomed to the lighter energy, to the lack of, for, your purposes, the lack of clutter energy. And when that clutter comes back, if a little bit of it starts, eking through, I imagine your process is much, much quicker the second time around.
Yes. Each time you go through that process, it's faster and faster. You notice quicker and quicker, and you have more and more sustainable systems in place that make it. Just this morning, it was last night. My kitchen, I've emptied the dishwasher, and there's dishes in the sink, and there's recyclables all over the counter, and it's just a hot mess. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to deal with this. Usually I take care of it every morning, and things have been wacky in our lives. So I just hadn't been doing it. Oh, fine, I'll do it. So I did. I emptied the dishwasher, and I put the dishes into the dirty dishes into the dishwasher, started it, wiped down the counters and the sink. And this was maybe like 10 minutes, probably even less than that. And my kitchen looks great again. Like, oh, like that was just a layer because I've worked hard to get it so that the foundation is fantastic. It's clear, it's open, and you just have to be willing to keep going in and doing that work when these things happen. And I will tell you that interestingly enough, the office I'm sitting in is used to be my guest room in my house. And it was because of the pandemic that I turned this into an office. And I have moved the furniture in this room. I don't even know how many times. I'm not even going to try to count right now. Trying to get the energy right. And I think I finally have it right. And I also kind of decluttered and styled the shelves that I have in here, things that you're not able to see on the camera. And I got it to a place where, okay, the energy is now flowing properly because this is a space that gets filled with a lot of interesting energy because of all the work that I do. And I got it to a place where I'm like, yes, I feel good about this. I'm not constantly shifting and moving around. So I think, even when you move into a new place, you're trying to kind of figure out what is truly the right flow in this space. But you were tuned enough to notice that was what needed to happen. And you didn't give up until you got it to the right place.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the funny part is that in that process, I moved the TV, I think twice. And one time it was on the wall. The next time it was on another wall. And the next time it ended up on a TV stand. So my handyman who came and like hung the TV, I kept on calling him back to like hang the TV on a different wall. And he's just like, what's with you? Why do you keep on moving this thing? Like, don't ask. Just don't ask. So now it has its place it lives. So yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing is that you can't be, sort of reticent to say, oh, well, I don't want to do that because like, oh, I have to call the handyman again, or I have to get somebody to come in. It's like, just do it. Just do it because you're going to feel so much better about it. Once you get to that place where the energy is harmonious, like, so this setup in my living room has been like this now for at least a good year and a half. So like, I know this is the good flow. Right. So but once you get to that space, you just know, and it's going to be right. So yeah. Wonderful. So if somebody is like, oh my gosh, I need your help, Kate. I need you to help me declutter my house and my emotional space and all of that. How can people get a hold of you?
A few different ways. You can go to my website at soulfulspacecoaching.com, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram at soulfulspace.coaching. Those are really the best ways to find me.
Wonderful. So it's SOULFULSPACE.coaching on Instagram and Facebook. And then for your website, soulfulspacecoaching.com. Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such a great conversation and super important because just as we work on our energetic self, our spiritual selves, our emotional selves, we live in a 3D world. We live in a physical world, and it has an effect on us. It has an effect on our energy, and we have an effect on the things around us. So it's important to address.
Yes, absolutely. That thing of stuff is affecting us and we're affecting stuff or people. Like it's all very reciprocal. Really important to understand.
Kate also has a Facebook group called Ditch Your Stuff Society, except for it's not stuff. It's SH*T. So you can fill in the blanks there just for the podcast. Is that on your website? People can find you there as well?
It's actually, there isn't a link on my website, oddly enough. That's probably something I should do. If you search for it on Facebook or you find my Facebook page, you'll be able to find it really easily.
Okay, fantastic. And by the time this episode is out, maybe you'll have it on your website and we'll put a link in the show notes.
Will. Jeez.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Annette. This has been so much fun.
Have an amazing day and never stop exploring your soul because it is the most important relationship you will ever have. If you are interested in learning more about me and the sessions that I do, feel free to go to my website at infinitesoullove.com. On all social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Infinite Soul Love 1111. Hey, and if you feel called, I would love it if you could rate The Heart of You on whatever streaming service you're using, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please take a moment, give it a review. It really does help the channel. Thanks so much.